Hello everyone, my name is Mario Gallo and this is my presentation on sports with the deaf community. So hope you enjoy and yeah, let's start with this presentation. Um, okay, so this is the introduction. American Sign Language has grown and is starting to spread and used among all the United States. American Sign Language has grown way too much. I mean, people have shown interest throughout the not only the United States but throughout the whole world. I mean, schools are teaching kids how to communicate in sign language. It's a way to communicate with people who do not have the availability to hear, um, who are not available to hear, who are not who are not able to hear. My bad. And and yeah, so it's pretty common nowadays. Okay, so because ASL has spread among the deaf community and people who have the ability to hear, it is pretty common for the deaf community to be interested in normal sports as well as any other community. Yes, so I mean, just because you're deaf doesn't mean that they won't have the same interests as we do. I mean, they still, for example, I mean, anyone can like soccer as well as a person who's deaf. I mean, we all have the same interest. An example is that since the 1900s, basketball has become one of the most popular sports in the United States, since a lot of people watch it, but more exciting, a lot of people play the sport. Due to the popularity that basketball had among the nation throughout the years, the deaf community has showed this interest and even created a professional association for them to play basketball. I mean, that's great. Being able to create their own association to in order for them to play basketball or any other sports really based on their disability and you know fitting their or having their own accommodations. That's pretty nice to have, and I mean we're progressing in some way. United States of America Deaf Sport Federation. That's the name of the federation they created for sports. Uh, the American Athletic Union of the Deaf was formed in 1945 after the Akron Club for the Deaf in Ohio staged the first national basketball competition in the United States, USDAF, in 2006. The USA Deaf Sports Federation, USADSF, is the United States national regulatory body for deaf sports groups. Its mission is to oversee competition regulations for affiliated organizations, make it easier for U.S. teams to compete, making it easier for U.S. teams to compete in international deaf tournaments, and use sports to promote human rights and equity. Yes, I mean the fact that they created their own federation lets us know that there's equality within different communities around the world. And a fun fact that, is to guarantee fair play, athletes playing in the USA DSF are not allowed to use hearing aids or cochlear implants during play, uh, which was created on 2008. Why basketball and any sports in general help the deaf community? So the basically the positive aspects of sports within the this community to be specific. Basketball is a sport with ancient origins that may be played by anybody, giving access to anyone to play it, including the deaf community. Yes, so anyone can play it. So I mean that's good. Many people decide to be deaf in order to avoid hearing the negative things about the game. Yes, that may sound a little bit sad, emotional because I mean why would you not want to hear your people? And I mean, we have this means that um, they take the sport way too serious, and I mean, any comment affects the people who play inside the game, and so yeah, that's pretty bad to hear. This connects both the ASL language users and the deaf community as they always communicate with the language that both understand, and it gives them a closer connection. Um, yes, games or any sports in general connect people together, so it helps people to know each other better. Basketball is a popular sport among persons who use ASL and are deaf. ASL is widely utilized in everyday life, and it is especially popular in the field of deaf sporting competition. ASL will continue to grow throughout the United States and it will be used by both hearing and deaf people. Basketball helps the deaf community distract themselves with something that they like. It makes them feel included. So these are the positive aspects of the game, which connects and helps the deaf community feel a part of society, which they are. Um, yeah. Um, I'm using basketball because basketball was one of the sports that was uh, was given the interest by this community. So it's we could say the most famous within the deaf community. So I'm using basketball because of that situation. The issue between sports and deaf people. While calling out plays, halting the game, or calling for the ball, a deaf athlete may face communication issues with teammates and coaches, as well as equipment challenges, such as if we're talking about water sports, interfering with their hearing aid. Two, if the sports permits them during the game may also take longer if these occasions problem happen during the game. Yes. So let's say you have a electric or electronic device, which is the hearing aid. If it has contact with water, I mean, they can get damaged and can cause bigger issues. Another difficulty that deaf athletes may face is a loss of the audience support. There are also clear safety concerns that pose risk in athletes cannot hear. Another challenge these athletes is that they are underestimated by some of their opponents and they are not considered a challenge. This not only affects the deaf athletes mentally during the games, but it also affects them emotionally on the long run. How these problems are solved. Because deaf athletes go through many issues when playing a sport, organizations and the event staffs have found many ways to solve these problems. For example, I listed some right there on the slide, so we're gonna read them out. Lights can be used to mark the start of a race in swimming. When the cannon is fired or the signal is given, the light will switch on to signify the start. This method may be used to other sports including track and field, boxing, basketball, and other activities that employ a horn or a gun to indicate the start of the game or at any point throughout the game. Flags or gestures such as waving can be used to draw the attention of an athlete. A player may need to tag a referee or another player to gain their attention. Visual aids such as scoreboards, whiteboards, and signs may be used to communicate. All of these factors are things that help out the deaf athletes succeed within the sports. Not only when there's deaf athletes playing on the game. I mean, we also use this as with people who can hear. So I mean, we're still using the same tools to play the game. So that's good. How do deaf people communicate when playing sports? When deaf people struggle in delivering their message to others or understanding what others are trying to say, they found out they find out ways to communicate and fully comprehend what both sides are saying. For example, athletes before the match starts get in contact with their mates or coaches and get in touch with the signals that they will be using throughout the game in order to facilitate communication. Other deaf athletes have developed the skill to understand body and lip movement, which they use throughout the match in order to know what others are trying to tell them. So they basically get ready before the game starts with their coaches and letting them know what they're gonna be in contact with. So you know yeah, the beauty of sports with the deaf community. Sports have two functions in deaf community. It allows for athletic competition in the first place, and it also encourages social connection in the second. When two different communities, deaf community and people who have hearing of it, who are able to hear, gather around and play the sport together, it creates equality for both sides and displays the importance of adapting to each other's needs. Giving the same opportunity to a deaf person to play the same sport that everyone plays with their accommodations makes them realize that everyone can do it and that nothing is impossible. Can deaf athletes play with athletes who don't know how to communicate in ASL? It is pretty hard for a person who doesn't know how to communicate in sign language to conversate with a deaf person. Just like previously mentioned, you can still manage to communicate with body movements and by reading the lips of the other person. Deaf people tend to master the skills of understanding by reading the lips of the other person, so it is possible for communication to exist within one another. Deaf professional athletes. Derek Coleman is the first offensive player to play in the National Football League (NFL). The Cardinals fullback signed with the Minnesota Vikings as a rookie free agency in 2012. Coleman plays fullback, which is a quieter position, but his presence is felt wherever he goes. Derek does not utilize sign language, but he's able to read lips, which was great news for his Fullerton, California high school football coach, who once was had Derek read the lips of the rival coach across the field. He's a role model to many of us. Although there are many unexistent obstacles, he became a very successful player. Conclusion: the participation of deaf athletes in organized sports as well as mainstream sports has risen in importance to the global deaf community. There will surely be disagreements over where these athletes should fit in the sports world and what standards they should follow, but they are clearly an essential part of the sports world today. Thank you. Hope you learned something from this presentation. Yeah, so this is my works cited. And thank you very much. Hope you learned